I'm Daisy.
And I'm Terri.
And this is the Monday Mindset Podcast,
where we share things of interest to us and hopefully to you.
So let's get started with episode number 112.
And this week, it's Daisy's turn to share something with us. Daisy, what do you have?
Well, Terri, I got caught again by an email newsletter. I think I've shared an article from these people before. It's a newsletter that comes from goodness knows when I signed up for it. I have no idea, but it's called the Next Big Idea Club, and it's a newsletter and a website, and they do send some quite interesting articles. I quite often click through and read the articles, and this is one of them. So we've moved on from hamsters, and what caught my eye this time was the mention of Wordle. And if you remember, Wordle and I had a big falling out, and I have not met up with Wordle since. I said I was never going back, and I have not once have I gone back to Wordle. I realised I was starting the day very, very grumpy. It was starting to irritate me greatly, and whether that's when the New York Times took it over or not, I don't know, but it went from being quite fun and something that I really enjoyed doing every morning to just being intensely irritating. So I said, right, that's it, never again, Wordle, I have had it with you. And yes, I'm quite pleased with myself that I haven't even been tempted to go back. But I do have new loves. I do have daily new loves that I do that I have not fallen out of love with. If anyone's interested, I do Hurdle every day. Do you do Hurdle?
Only when one of you will post it and it looks like it's an easy one, because I get very discouraged very quickly with that one.
I see, that's interesting. I don't get annoyed if I don't know it, and quite often I don't know it, especially if it's something modern. For anyone who doesn't know, Hurdle is kind of like Wordle, but it's music. So they play you 1 second intervals of the intro to a song, and it's amazing. When you know it, and you usually get it in the first second. So that's quite good fun, takes hardly any time at all. And then the other one I like is Waffle. Have you played Waffle?
I have.
Yes, I very much enjoy Waffle. They do come up with interesting words. They don't do the the irritating stuff that Wordle used to do, with like using double letters and just being annoying. It became a guessing. Anyway, you can tell, can't you? I just got very, very irritated. Anyway, so they mentioned Wordle, but actually they didn't then mention Wordle in the article at all, really. But they have different sort of series with this newsletter, and the one that this is from is something called Book Bites, which, as you might imagine, is where they just share some key insights from an author and their book. It's usually the author that's writing. In fact, I think it's always the author that's writing a brief article that gives you some key insights about their book. And the book in question is called The Puzzler: One Man's Quest to Solve the Most Baffling Puzzles Ever. From Crosswords to Jigsaw to the Meaning of Life. And the author in question is A.J. Jacobs, who apparently is an editor for Esquire and also a journalist and author. And so this is 5 key insights from his book. So this is all about puzzle solving, as you might imagine. Number 1, don't get furious, get curious. When confronting a problem, he says, it's very easy to get angry, as I did with Wordle. But anger is counterproductive to creative solutions. You tend to get tunnel vision. Instead, adopt the puzzler mindset. And I think I'm not sure if I should have looked into that, but the puzzler, do you get the puzzler? I say magazine. It's a sort of little book that's full of puzzles, basically, all sorts of different puzzles.
I do not.
Different kinds of things, from sort of crosswordy things to logic puzzles. It's a mix of puzzles. So instead, he says, you need to adopt the puzzler mindset of curiosity and reframing life's problems as puzzles. So you might be wondering, why am I talking about puzzles? Well, because of the relevance that it might have to your life. And this is the main one, really. Instead of thinking of life's problems as problems, think instead of them as puzzles. I know how much you like reframing things. Apparently, Quincy Jones said, "I don't have problems, I have puzzles." So you need to switch your mindset when looking at life and business to puzzles, having puzzles rather than problems. Problems are fear-inducing and intractable, but puzzles are solvable, motivating, and engage your creative and playful side, and more likely to lead to a productive solution. Number 2 of the 5 key insights, chop your problem into bits. And they talk about Fermi problems, which I'd never heard of, but it sounds like a sort of a too big to comprehend question. And the example they give is, and apparently this is used often in certain types of interviews, these Fermi problems. But a typical question would be, how many piano tuners are there in New York? And wild guesses are most likely to be out by a lot. But if you break the question down into smaller chunks, you are more likely to come up with a number that's in the ballpark. So for this example, you might break that big question into smaller questions, like how many households are there in New York? And what proportion of those households might have pianos? And how often do they need tuning? And how long does a tune-up take? And so on. So you can then make an educated guess, which is more likely to be, in the ballpark of what the correct answer is. But the point is here, when a problem seems too big, break it into smaller pieces. And he talks about, if you want to start running, we've all heard this before, putting your trainers by the front door. So, of course, it brings to mind atomic habits and tiny steps. Always easier to tackle a big problem or puzzle or question by breaking it down into smaller chunks. Number 3, turn the puzzle upside down, backwards, or just another way around. And the example they use, they're really sort of talking about logic puzzles here, but the example they use is a man is shut in a room with cement walls and a dirt floor. The only openings are a skylight and a locked door. He has a shovel and he starts to dig, but he knows it's impossible to tunnel out, but still he continues to dig. Why is that? Well, because he's not digging a tunnel, he's building a hill to climb up and walk out through the skylight. And they mention, this way of thinking has brought about various developments. And the example they give is with car assembly lines, where someone thought it would be much more productive to bring the car parts to the workers rather than the other way around. So sometimes when there's something that you can't figure out, looking at it from a different direction, turning it upside down, turning it backwards, coming at it from a different angle can help you figure out what to do. Number 4, be supremely flexible. They talk about cognitive flexibility. And he says, good puzzlers don't fall in love with their hypotheses. They keep their beliefs provisional, open to new evidence, and they embrace the delete key. And he says that you need to embrace the idea that you might be wrong to ultimately get it right. And he quotes a psychologist called Daniel Kahneman, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, who says, being wrong is the only way I feel sure I learned something. I can't remember which episode we've talked about, but we've talked about it many times before, haven't we? Embracing failure, doing little quotation marks there, as a learning experience. Number 5, the final key insight, find the toehold. When faced with a problem, attack it at its weakest point. And the example they give is when you're scanning a big crossword and most of the questions you have no idea. But if you go through them all, there's often one that you can do. And once you've put that in, it reveals some letters. And that then often snowballs from one right answer that gives you some clues and that you can answer some of the harder questions. So just finding that easy bit in. And I guess some of these sort of link into each other, don't they? You know, chopping your problem into bits, finding the easy way in. So I just thought that was quite interesting, a different framework to look at life's problems or puzzles from a slightly different angle. What we can learn from puzzles and not Wordle that makes you cross and you just give up on it.
Definitely not.
That's probably not a good life lesson, is it?
But it may indicate how we have solved problems in the past. It's interesting, as I was listening to you, I love puzzles. And I think all of those are things that I do when I'm really looking at puzzles. And I tried thinking a little bit about, do I use these approaches with everyday challenges? And some of them I think I do. And some of them it's like, oh yeah, I could be doing what I do when I'm working on a puzzle more in my life. Use that transferable skill to help me break down challenges into smaller pieces, help me not get so frustrated, try look at it in a different way. It's a great analogy.
Yes, I particularly like the first one. I think that's the one that I felt was a good one to take away for me and to remind myself of often. Because as I was reading about it, I could just kind of picture myself, you know, getting frustrated. And I have actually stamped my foot when I'm trying to learn how to do something. I can remember just before I left to move to France, I wanted to learn how to plaster because I thought that, you know, it would be a useful skill. And it's one of those things, isn't it? When you watch somebody who's been doing it for years, they make it look so easy. I can learn how to do that. How hard can it be? I'm a very practical person. How hard can it be? So the person who was teaching me, he had me practice on this office space that we were renting. It's when I had a landscaping business. And I'm not sure if I actually stamped my foot in frustration, but I think I came very, very close because, of course, it was extremely hard. And he just laughed at me and said, I don't know why you expected to be able to learn how to do this in like 2 days and be able to do it as easily as I can, who's been doing it for decades. I mean, yeah, you make it look so easy. So I think I have a tendency to get angry. You know, what he mentioned, having that tunnel vision. And it does, it narrows you in, doesn't it? Whereas if you look at it as a puzzle, as a problem-solving, fun puzzle to do, you immediately feel lighter, feel creative, feels more fun because, you know, in general, unless you're getting grumpy with Wordle, these things are fun. They're something you look forward to. And it does engage that part of your brain that is creative and playful and likes looking for solutions. So that was the biggest takeaway for me, I think. I really liked that reframing of when you come across a problem. We cross out problem and replace it with a puzzle to be solved. I can see how, if I could make that happen, practically speaking, it could really change how I feel about the situation.
Well, I think there's something interesting in thinking about puzzles and problems in that, for me, sometimes the challenge with puzzles is I don't have enough clues. And I think sometimes with Wordle or other ones, I want a hint option. Like, give me a hint, show me one thing, or give me something about this word or whatever. I like those that have hints, and I do use the hints. And that idea that I get, it almost feels threatening when I am under the impression I may not come up with the answer, which I assume I get overwhelmed by in dealing with problems as well. was also thinking of one of my favorite types of puzzles to do is logic puzzles. I have tons of logic puzzle books. I do them a lot.
Do you do those ones where it's on like a grid, and it gives you, Jane likes strawberry ice cream but doesn't like chocolate ice cream, and whatever it is, and you put the little crosses and you have to figure out which one. I like those,
which is great fun until you've made a mistake in filling out your grid and then you can't go back and trace it, and so then I just have to scrap that whole puzzle and go to the next puzzle, which you can't really do with life problems. But I was also thinking about, for me, let's say they give you 6 clues. So Jane doesn't like chocolate, but she did not eat her ice cream on Tuesday. William does like chocolate, but ate his on the weekend 2 days before Cindy, blah, blah, blah. I go through once and I fill in as much of the grid as I can. I read each clue and fill in the grid. And sometimes I read a clue and it doesn't help me fill in the grid at all. Now that I have the grid partially filled out, I go back through and I start reading them again. And I think that's actually maybe a good reminder for me of solving problems in life. Go through what you do know, go through what you have, set it up for yourself in some way, and then keep going back. And I think sometimes I get frustrated and think, I already thought about that. I already looked at that option. Right, but now you have new information. Maybe that option is going to open up something more for you now. So that's a helpful way for me to think about. You get information along the way in solving problems, and you may need to go over the same information more than a few times until it actually makes sense and helps lead you to a solution.
Yes, they all apply really, don't they? Find the toehold, find the easy way in, and you might not get the whole solution, but you get a little way in. And then maybe you go away and you sleep on it, and it sort of percolates around in your brain, and you come at it from a slightly different angle the next day, and you see something else and you find another toehold. And what, of course, you're doing there as well is breaking it into smaller chunks. And, applying the first one, getting creative, looking. So it's interesting, isn't it? And I think it does apply to problem or puzzle solving. We have puzzles, problems to solve in our daily lives, don't we? From something that's really small to something that seems monumentally huge. They're all just puzzles to be solved.
That's right. And the more we can find what in us does it tap that's positive, the creativity, as you said, the problem-solving abilities, the critical thinking, the seeing outside of the box. Let ourselves tap into those aspects of ourselves rather than just looking at, I don't know the answer, I don't know how to do this, and use our other skills. Yes, so there you go. A different way to look at problems. Start to enjoy them as puzzles.
Definitely.
Unless, of course, you're someone who doesn't like puzzles. Then I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You
then
need
we're not speaking
article.
to you. Yeah. We'll go back to the hamster.
That's right. That's right. Well, hopefully everyone will have a few puzzles they can work on this week, even if they choose to do Wordle.
Or don't.
That's right.
Do waffle and hurdle like I do. Do you still do Wordle, do you?
You know what? It's so weird. It's partly, this is indicative of so much of my personality. I forget to do it. And the only time I remember to do it is when I see someone post about it.
Right.
And then depending on what they post, I decide whether I'm going to go do it or not. And someone I know the other day posted that it took them all 6 tries, or 5, 6 is it that you get?
6, yeah.
And they still didn't get it. And they said just too many choices, but they had 5 letters the whole way through.
Oh, see, that's why I fell out, and I suppose because somebody else mentioned this, that there is another way. This is where you kind of get wedded to the formula you have. And I think I was a bit wedded to a formula. I had the perfect first word, which used 4 out of 5 vowels. But the kind of choices they were going for, I think maybe accounted for people using those kind of first words.
Sure.
And it just became a guessing game. It could be so many different variables But as someone else pointed out, this is where you need to come at it from a different angle, and you throw in a weird word that rules out a lot of the letters, and you should be able to get it that way. But it's like, no, I'm just done. I'm going to go and do waffle instead, which I find much better. They do come up with, he finds, I'm pretty sure it's a he, finds some interesting words. And so quite often just words that you either occasionally haven't even heard of, but are ones that, gosh, I haven't heard that word used for a long time. And so it's just quite a fun thing. It always feels, I think there's been the odd occasion when I haven't managed to get it, but it always feels very achievable. The challenge is to do it with more and more swaps remaining. So there's that sort of feel-good factor that even if you're doing it a bit lazily, you're still going to win it. But if you really apply yourself and think about it, you can leave more swaps remaining. And that's where the challenge lies. And hurdle is just you get it or you don't get it. And I'm not bothered if I don't. So those are my two fun things I like to do with my coffee every morning.
I think for me, the Wordle and waffle both, unlike other puzzles, to me, it feels like a lot of chance, not just a lot of knowledge.
Oh, you see, waffle I find is less about, there's less chance in waffle. Yeah, I found that much more of a interesting puzzle.
Yeah, I feel like that one's more random because I know I need that letter, but I don't know where to exchange it with. And so I just start moving things. So I get excited that I just get it done within the number of exchanges that I get.
Oh, no, you see, I like to figure out as much as I can what all the words are first. And then I'm figuring out how to move the letters to leave enough swaps remaining. But I guess that's the nature of puzzles. Mm-hmm. One type of puzzle will appeal to one person and not to another, and so on.
And maybe why some puzzles are frustrating for you because it's hard to just map out the right answer. Mm. And for me, it's like, yoo-hoo, I got it. I guessed lucky this time. Yeah, that's an interesting difference.
Yeah, whereas I just go off in a huff and refuse to ever do it again, which I'm sure tells you and a great many of the listeners something about me that I probably didn't wish to reveal.
As I always say, I think that's diagnostic.
Well, on that note, I hope you have a very wonderful week.
Take good care, Daisy.
A puzzlingly wonderful week.
That's right. Take good care, Daisy. Everyone enjoy.
Bye, everyone.